Hello and welcome to Business Television India. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and you're watching our continued special coverage of the GST and its aftermath on the Indian economy. Over 80 days have passed since the tax became reality and the feedback from the ground has been a bit mixed. While a majority of volume-based indicators from the formal sector, I repeat, the formal sector suggests that the initial hiccups associated with the transition to what was promised as a good and simple tax are subsiding. The feedback from the medium and smaller size companies is not so gung-ho. You would of course have heard and seen a lot about that. So here's what we did at BTVI. In partnership with Chrome Data Analytics, we conducted a comprehensive survey of what small and medium enterprises, especially those under the 1,000 crore revenue segment, as well as crucial stakeholders like chartered accountants had to say on the GST. And joining me now to discuss the findings of that survey are Pankaj Krishna, CEO and founder of Chrome DM, Atul Gupta, Senior Director at Deloitte Haskins & Sells LLP, Reg Jain, former President of the ICAI, Anita Rastogi, Partner, Indirect Tax at PwC, Bipin Chapra, Tax Partner, EY India. Let me head across to Pankaj first to tell us about the sort of setup of this entire conversation, the methodology that was used, the sample size and the profile of the respondents. Pankaj, if I can ask you to take our viewers through those first two slides which are very crucial to establishing what we did and the subsequent findings. Take us through what were the details there.
This was a survey covered nationally across 6 metros. Approximately exactly 527 respondents, mostly towards business firms and chartered accountants. So the respondents were people who were pretty much savvy with what GST is all about and what they felt about the pros and cons on GST. These are one-on-one interviews conducted by the field team at Chrome DM across all the 6 metros. This entire method of data collection is fully automated, so there is no scope for error. We record what the respondents say on a mobile phone and it gets immediately captured and tabulated in the system. So I think it was a uniform spread across the 6 metros. Most slides as we move along, there will be consensus in the opinions felt in terms of the hardships of the transitions. So it was, I think, a fairly robust number, 527 experts from the field on their opinions on GST and the transition.
If I may add, Pankaj, the profile of the respondents, and this survey was conducted between the 1st and the 15th of September. That is a very crucial date because it takes some time to process the results. There were several questions, but this survey, the main period of the data collection, which Pankaj Krishna, as the head of the agency that did it with us, was telling us, was 1st to 15th of September. The profile of the respondents, the gender split, pretty equal, and although it is not related to that, 51% male respondents, 49% female. The age split, obviously, a significant majority of them falling in the higher 36 to 40 age bracket. That was the key basic rationale and the maths of the survey. So the finding number one is a response to the first question that we are going to play out on the screen. We asked respondents, how was your transition to the GST? And there you have it, the response right up there on your screen. As many as 73% of these respondents said it was a smooth transition. 27% said it was not smooth, and when we asked them, when Chrome DM asked them the reasons for the difficulty in the transition, there were responses which said 62% of the respondents said that there was an error in the website and the forms were hard to obtain. We are going to put that up on our screen right away. And also a finding which said 38% said it was hard to update with the new laws. Pankaj, what are the reasons here that the respondents described about these difficulties, the website error as well as the updation of the new laws?
So before I walked into the studio, I spoke to my chartered accountant on what his opinion was. There are issues. There are problems every time you move through a transition. There are turbulences. People take time to learn new softwares and new methodologies, and the same seems to be happening with the GST system itself. But to be honest and to be completely transparent, my CA as well said that they are facing problems. At times, the websites are not up and running at the pace that they expect it to do. During the times of returns, there is too much traffic, and technology does not comply with the speed that we need to. So that's basically, I think, that the problem is. And this obviously gets a little more aggravated.
Okay, the slides.
Yeah.
The third slide, Pankaj, as we quickly move along to the basic findings, and this was a question that was asked by the field surveyors to all the respondents: is the process of filing GST returns smooth? And again, we'll bring that up quickly on the screen. 71% of the responses, and you have it on the screen, said that they found the process of filing quite smooth. 29% said not smooth. Pankaj, when we were reviewing these findings, this seemed to be a bit of an outlier comment, that it doesn't seem to fit in with the overall sense. Why is it that 71% of the responses said that they found the process of filing smooth? Was there an inherent bias in the sample?
No, I don't think this is a bias. I was also seeing this earlier during the day. There are two sets of respondents. So one is the chartered accountants who are giving their opinion on how easy they find it to file the GST return. So the chartered accountants who work for the CA firms, the young batches, they found it relatively smooth because there is not a huge learning curve that goes in evolving to the GST. However, if you go to the impact of the GST of cost of running your business, this is the perception of what the chartered accountant thought for their clients, right? So the costs have gone up on running that business. And as far as the difficulty on the transition is concerned, that was also something where people who are running their own businesses face difficulty in adopting to a new system.
So hold on there, Pankaj. Pankaj, hold on there, because now let's open up to the panel of experts that is here with me, because before we move on to some of those main findings, and Pankaj front-loaded that finding of what is the impact of GST on the cost of running your business. 71% of the respondents said the cost has gone up, 25% said costs have gone down, 4 said there is no change. I want to open up to the panel. Mr. Jain, so far from the findings, what are your observations?
See, my observation is that as we see the analysis coming up, there are mixed reactions. And we have seen what has gone into last 80 days also. And if we analyze this report and survey with the news coming in day in, day out, so there has been two major issues which have been coming up. Preparation of the IT network vis-a-vis the act and the rules. So my impression and the survey also indicate, yes, there has been a gap in the act and rule and the IT preparation. There has been a wide gap.
And that is where people are saying updation of laws and stuff. Atul, your quick comments.
See, a couple of points on the survey itself, because one is limited to metros. So we are talking about what about other than the 6 metros that you've chosen.
Okay.
So their sample is biased, to be honest.
Okay.
1. 2, you're talking about half of your raise are chartered accountants. Chartered accountants will make sure that their clients' data is somehow fed. Because I am rather very surprised by the survey results, because when you say 73% say it's smooth, that's not been our experience. I think it's far the smoothness, so to say, attributed to the process is, I think, overstated here.
It could come from the methodology and the city bias. That's a good point. A limitation of perhaps the time that it was taken. Bipin, your initial comments about what you have said so far.
My view is that the transition hasn't happened fully as yet.
Okay.
On 1st of July, nothing was going to happen, except they were going to issue new invoices which were in new formats.
Yeah.
Start doing business in a certain way. That has happened smoothly, maybe. That may be one thought process which people may have. But the first return, the compliance hasn't been filed as yet. It has taken so long for the GSTN to be ready, and even when in all the efforts which have been done, we have had 2 or 3 extensions for filing those returns. So that process hasn't got completed.
Okay, Anita, very quickly before we go on, your reaction to what you see.
So I completely agreed with both of them, because even our experience is that it was not as smooth as we would have wanted. Secondly, apart from the smaller cities, the fact that the software itself was not taking up a lot of load was really a shame, I would say. And it was always anticipated that how many invoices have to be uploaded. To say that so many got uploaded on the last day and that's why the server was not working was not a good thing, I would say.
Okay, good point there. We'll now move on to the crux of it, because one quick learning for Pankaj and me is perhaps to do a second round, Pankaj, in a few weeks from now in tier 2, tier 3 cities to get a better sense, because the larger cities would be more predisposed with availability of all the necessary. But that main slide up on your screen again, what is the impact of GST on the cost of running your business? And associated with that, I'm going to request for the second slide to be played out very quickly. What is the effect on your cost advantage post GST? These are two slides which I want to play out back to back. The cost of running, 71% saying the costs have gone up, and nearly 2/3 of respondents saying that the cost advantage has either gone down or had no effect post GST. Atul, you're nodding there. Again, your comments about what this is suggesting.
Very seriously, I think it's too early. We need to have at least 2-3 cycles to be over, complete cycles of GSTR 1, 2 and 3 for us to say whether or not there is a cost advantage or not. Because clearly there is. In case you use technology over a longer period of time, your cost of compliance should go down. Okay. So that's in respect of cost of compliance.
So what's this comment about gone up?
Basically, on the gone up is that initially it has gone up. You need professional help. You need the software help, right?
But it will taper off eventually.
It will taper off as we move along. Maybe at the end of the year.
Especially in tier 2.
I believe there should be two aspects to the cost, because I'm worried about the 25% people saying that cost going down. Are we talking in terms of the cost of compliance, or are we saying the cost of the product I'm selling and what we're buying? I'm not clear on this issue, but we're talking about.
The question was with regard of cost of doing business.
So cost of doing business in any case has to go up, because there are increased compliances. Nobody can say on GST that compliances have not increased, because there are 3 returns every month that need to be filed. It has to be online every time. You need a person who is an IT expert, however small or however big it may be. There can't be any issue. In the long run, I may say, all right, you went.
Let me then throw in 2 more slides to take this forward quickly. The slide that comes up now.
I think you get the point, Siddharth, right? What these slides connote is the cost of running the business from a FMCG or a businessman point of view, not from a compliance point of view in terms of complying to GST. So to give it very simply, earlier on a FMCG you would look at a 12% VAT, which now broadly moves to 18% or between 12 and 18%. So if you were to sell products at a fixed value, so if something was to sell at 100 rupees, it will continue to sell at 100 rupees, because the consumer will not give the differential. Yet the tax liability increases from a 12 to 18%. So from a cost of running a business. But I think the lady was bang on. The cost of appliances too have gone up. Right, so that's broadly what the point is. It's cost of running a business.
I'm pausing you for a moment, because let's play out the 2 next slides that we have chosen, which will take this forward. Very interesting. The question that was asked was, what is the effect on your tax liability post GST, and what is the impact on your margins? Those 2 are going to play out back to back, and see the response. It's there on the screen. We'll stay with it. GST impact on tax liability, a rise in outgo of 67% respondents saying that, lesser outgo 27%, 6% saying no change. Bipin, you want to comment about that?
Absolutely. See, what has happened is that the initial part, when GST kicked in, people have put in the new rates over the already existing prices. Right. Nobody has really gone down and done his synergies or whatever is coming back from the GST.
To a final pricing.
Yeah. So once that kicks in, and I think it will take more than 6 months for that to happen.
And when that kicks in, what will happen?
Then there may be a reduction. So then it will go down. Then the price will go down, the tax would remain the same.
I will clarify in some different way. Okay. The sample is not clear how many are people in goods and how many are in services. Okay. 67% liability going up. Maybe many of them are in the services where the service tax rate has gone from 50 to 18%. Obvious liability has gone down. Sure. I am of the view so far goods are concerned, it being a pass-through GST. People who are in an organized sector, all their liability should go down. Even in the consumer sector. Maybe see, the question is passing on the liability to the consumer is something different. Issue is that as a businessman, because we are debating it out, what the businessman is filling it out. Absolutely. Businessman getting full credit of the input, right, is what we call an input tax credit. Theoretically, so that way the liability to pay to the government may not be too high. I make a sale of a 1 crore rupees, 18%, 18 lakh rupees, but I may be making a purchase of 90 lakh rupees on which I get a credit of 18%, 60 lakh 20,000 rupees. So now to look at a liability of 18 lakh rupees, you will say it is higher, but net liability of 1.8 lakh rupees may not be higher.
So actually the point what he was trying to say is that maybe in the first month, the companies have not really taken into consideration the tax credit. They have just put a tax over and above their value, and in due course of time they will do that.
Okay, the next slide very quickly. What is the impact on your margins? Now relate this, the tax liability to margins, and that is going to play out on your screen right away. 26% of respondents, like Mr. Vajan said, we don't have a breakup of how many respondents are services or goods, and we don't have the capacity to tell you that. 26% say margins have gone up, 17% say have gone down, 57% say no impact. Explain this to us. Do you want to explain?
Okay, so I would tend to think again on margins. Typically, if you recall, the duty structure has been fixed on the basis of principle of equivalence.
Yeah.
Which basically means the duty liability per se should not make any great change in terms of the margins.
Okay.
Not because of the duty, at least from moving from VAT and an excise regime to a GST regime. Now come to the cost of compliance, cost of doing business, as we talked earlier. To begin with, it will go up, but gradually it will taper down only.
Okay.
So I would tend to think it has to make, in the long run, more competitive.
Okay. Now here is the interesting...
Let me clarify on this issue. We are looking at the 57% no change. We should keep in mind the bias. People normally do not come out to say, yes, they are making more profit. So there can be always a bias. So it has to be...
Can I have one more thing that people, I don't think really have the numbers to...
Too early
in the day to say that the margins are changed.
Okay, so considering the fact that anti-profiteering people have still not really implemented it, and the objective really was that pre-GST and post-GST, the tax burden typically should be same.
Right.
So this margin is something which people have not calculated so much in detail.
Absolutely, and point taken, but the idea for us was also to do a quick analysis, which is where, effectively between the 70th to the 65th to the 80th day we have conducted this survey.
Yeah.
The next and more significant slides, and I'll quickly run through the 2-3 slides and then do the final discussion. Next slide, is your business gaining pace? Are supply orders back to pre-GST levels? So we are now moving on as to what is going to happen with regard to business prospects on the ground. The findings say, answer, no, 58% believe that supply orders are not back at pre-GST levels. 42% say yes. Again, Mr. Jain would probably say who are the respondents who are saying yes. But I will move to the next slide for the benefit of everyone and those who are watching us. The next slide, how do you expect your business to perform during the upcoming festive season? Now this is the most surprising slide right up there. An overwhelming 92% of respondents say they expect business to be very good in the upcoming festive season. 2 more slides quickly before, and Bipin, go ahead.
My view would be where they are putting the reference. From after 1st of July they are putting a reference, or last year they are putting a reference?
I think a very valid point, because like pre-GST. Exactly, absolutely.
Only consumer durables.
Pankaj, do you want to come in on this point as to whether the comparison on this 92% is vis-a-vis last year, or is it pre-GST, post-GST comparison?
And
I
also,
think
is it only for consumer durable?
Yeah, I think it's, the lady said it bang on, it's probably got to do with last year. Right now with Diwali, with the peak season coming in, I think the season itself will override everything else. So people are pretty optimistic, and things are positive in terms of how the season time will be for them. So it is a last year versus this year probably.
Okay. Now, impact on exporters. Again, just to sort of to try and do as comprehensive a review, the impact on exporters slide will play out. 58% of the respondents who must have either been dealing with export businesses saying that there are fewer orders. This is the finding number one. Only 11% say orders have increased, which by the way is completely in trend line with what is happening in the overall export data. The second question that we asked here was, how has GST affected your competitiveness vis-a-vis exports? And there is obviously no currency filter that has been applied here. 41% say competitiveness has increased, but a majority, 59%, say no effect. So therefore, the conclusion by the research agency is there has been a negative impact of GST on exports. I'm opening up again to comments on this before we come to the last two slides, which is where our viewers, the respondents say, what are the pending problems and what changes do they want?
I think export sector has really got negatively impacted, considering the fact that you are required to first make a tax payment because of the working capital issue which is now coming up. It was not required earlier, right? All these provisions should have been told to them much upfront, much before.
This is a double whammy in the case of an exporter. Earlier they were making purchases without paying taxes against farms, and there were no taxes when they were exporting. Now there are both. When you are making purchases, you pay the taxes, and when you are exporting, then again you either you give the bond or you pay the taxes. And the refunds, I don't think, are coming in the near future like they.
So you agree
capital. Nobody can now in export.
There's one point to it also, that even the pre-export purchases, so something which is going into a manufacturing, which is going to be exported, those were also exempted from excise, VAT, those have also become taxable.
So the findings generally in line with your anecdotal experience from the ground, exports hit the most?
Yeah, absolutely. I would tend to think exporters are hit, but again, I would still like to think that this is basically a working capital impact for exporters.
Okay.
Because exporters will get the money from the bank, but there is a cost which is attached to getting it financed, and that's hurting them, no doubt. And then this entire transition from having to buy free of taxes and then to pay taxes and claim refunds is causing operational issues for them as well. Clearly,
This causes operational issue to the government also. Because the government to collect money and to refund money, and the GST Council need to find out a way out that why they want to first collect the money and then pay it back.
Yeah, they could come up with a accounting, they could do a sort of notional
they need to come out and they
Right.
need to repose confidence somewhere. I believe it's a situation where we say no, you pay first and then we will refund you. Because there somewhere you need to have.
From a competitiveness, I think they are losing the market. As far as orders are concerned, I'm personally aware that a lot of our clients have said that they have refused the orders which they were getting only because of these compliance issues as well.
They have actually
They had to refuse the orders.
And
They've actually refused the orders.
I'd like to add to what Mr. Jain was saying, that somewhere the government has to repose faith. In case of supplies to SEZs, they are doing that by taking it a bond or an undertaking, allowing it to be exported without to the SEZ. Similarly, for exporting units, something similar can be worked out, which has been there in the past also, so that they get their due, they get their working capital back, or they don't have to pay the initially.
Okay. It increases compliance cost for the government also, because it's a lot of paperwork. You get deposit and you file return and then you get a refund and process refund.
From this industry perspective, now it's so decentralized that what they were getting as a refund in one location is now been fragmented. The cost of getting a refund
every location state that you are working at. Okay, now clearly at this stage, as we move into the final part of our chat, the export related suggestions are very significant, but now the final two slides, which are extremely interesting. What we asked as a conclusion, after this discussion with the respondents, we asked them to summarize what are their pending problems with the GST. The word pending is significant here. Again, I remind all of our viewers, the period of the survey was 1st to 15th September. Remember, the GST was introduced on July 1st, and like our expert panel here have said, perhaps some of this might be early, but this is just version 1.0. I promise we'll keep updating this survey and going across to tier 1 and tier 2. So what are your pending problems with GST? The first requirement, lots of statutory compliances, hectic to manage along with the existing business. Mr. Jain, please take note of that. More clarifications required in laws related to practical problems. Adaptation to new accounting software is a major problem. Need time to get used to the new filing process. Pankaj, do you want to add and summarize this list of problems identified?
Yeah, so I'll just explain to you broadly what this entire thing entails, so right from exporters to people in the domestic market. As far as the first point is concerned, reduction of filing of returns every month to every quarter. Earlier we had GSTs. Before GST, during the service tax compliance, we used to pay service tax and we used to get audited once in a year. So every month the CAs would get together and they would figure out the entire process of filing service tax. With the GST, it's become a monthly process, which basically means every month you file the GST, and not only is it limited to a GST where apparently GST 1, 2, 3 and 4, GST 1 is on the services that you avail, the input of GST, on the services that you provide the output of the GST, and then there is a GST 3 which needs to be done. So as far as compliance is concerned, it's become a huge lengthy process which goes on every single week. The other issue that people had brought up during the survey was the matter of reverse charge. Now what reverse charge basically means, earlier reverse charge was mostly applicable to conducting business with mostly advocates or people in the transport business. Right now the reverse charge is applicable across streams. So whether if someone does not have a GST number and you conduct business with that individual, you are liable to the reverse charge, right, which again becomes a huge compliance issue.
Right.
The third most important thing is businesses with turnovers of less than 20 lakhs are exempted from a GST vis-a-vis the service tax regime which was at 10 lakhs and below. In theory that is right, but in terms of practicality it probably does not hold. So a lot of people who are below 20 lakhs, they came back saying that how do we conduct business, because big corporates would not give us business unless we are GST compliant, as now they are liable to a reverse charge, which basically means I would not get a vendor who does not have a GST number, right? So that adds up to all the three problems. And I think a gentleman had pointed out the other point was the state-wise GST. So if you are conducting a business with offices in Delhi and Bombay, you cannot claim input on a Bombay rental office unless you show an income generated out of the Bombay thing. So that gets decentralized, which is a little bit of a concern. So that pretty much explains on the transition being difficult, but people do have an optimist approach that by the time you reach the festival season, things will settle out.
The experts here are suggesting stagger it out, phase it out, allow people to breathe, otherwise, God forbid, they will perhaps collapse under the sheer weight and the enormity of this gigantic tax reform. With that, we are completely out of time on this show, but thank you very much to all my guests and Pankaj for this survey. We'll keep coming back with more details and updates.